Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Applications Committee, Wednesday, 24th of April. Can all people in the hall make sure their phones are either switched off or on silent? This meeting is being live streamed and will be made available on the Council website for public viewing. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep track of whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. Tracy, can you confirm sediment and I approve remote participation?
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Morning, members. We've got 16 members present in total, 6 members present in person at the Council HQ, being the Chair, Councillors Barretti, Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Drybra, Councillor Drysdale, Councillor Slater. We've got 10 members present on Microsoft Teams, being Councillors Blake, Councillor Ian Crothers, Councillor Davis, Councillor Hill, Councillor Howie, Councillor Hislop, Councillor Jordan, Councillor McFarlane, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Walters. And I've got 3 members that are not present at the start of the meeting, Chair, being the Vice Chair, Councillor Dashbert and Councillor Marshall. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tracy. And for members' information, Councillor Giusti, Vice Chair, has called to say stuck in traffic. He will be present. He'll be here as soon as he can. Are there any declarations of interest, members? And can I ask members to confirm whether you're making a statement of connection or a declaration of interest? Whilst waiting for Keith Walters, please.
Sorry, can I just make a statement of connection for item 6? In that I'm friends with the neighbours of the applications, the land of the application site. So I'll be leaving the meeting then, and I've also got a meeting at 12, so I'll be leaving the meeting then as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walters. I have one statement of connection in that in agenda item 7, I sat many years ago in a liaison group with Councillor Syme relating to wind farm benefit from Sandy-Now, the original Sandy-Now application. But that was superseded a long time ago by the Upper Nithsdale Community Development Trust. So I have no connection and no interest to declare, other than I've heard the representation at Sacre Community Council, and I simply listened to what was being said. So it's a statement of connection, and I will be present to determine that application. I have Councillor Ivor Hislop and then Councillor Pauline Drysdale. Councillor Hislop, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's with regard to item 4. I think it's a statement of connection, but I won't be staying in for the meeting. There are at least 15 names on the list that I've known for most of my life, because I grew up in the area of Amesfield. Some are neighbours, others are business associates, etc. And I notice one's a familial connection through my sister-in-law, so I'll leave the meeting for that item.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So you don't want advice from Laura Whitelaw, our legal advisor, you're simply going to leave the meeting?
I think it'd be safer and cleaner for the application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hislop. Councillor Pauline Drysdale.
Morning, members. Thank you, Chair. I have a very loose historical connection with item number 4, in that many years ago we used to do private events in the remit of our catering business, but we no longer do that type of business, and I don't actually even know if Mr Johnson is the daughter, son or relative of Mrs Johnson, so I don't have any connection with that family anymore, but I used to do events in the past and we no longer do that kind of catering. So I will remain in the meeting and remain part of the debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Drysdale. Councillor John Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I used to live in Amesfield, left there in 2006, so I've got no connection at this moment in time, but it's just a statement of connection. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. If there are no other members looking to speak, we'll take that agenda item been dealt with. Members, we move on to agenda item 4, which is the confirmation of the previous minute. Well, it's 4 in this paper and 3 in that one. So is the minute of the 21st of March 2024 a true record, or are there amendments to be made? If we're happy that it's a true record, we'll confirm that that's a true record of the meeting. I'll now ask our clerk, Tracy, to... Oh, Andy McFarlane, please.
Yep, sorry, just interrupt. Very slight typo. It's under item 6.2. After Andrew Gusty, I think it's a slight typo. It says hat, should be that, I'm sure.
Tracy, our clerk's confirmed that's correct. Content with that?
Yes, I've noted that. Thanks, Councillor McFarlane.
Thanks very much, Councillor McFarlane. And with that change, we now have a confirmation of the minute, and we move on to the next item when I'll ask our clerk to outline the procedure to be followed today.
Thanks, Chair. The Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determining issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points of clarification. The Chairman has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chairman will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Applications Committee, and such members should withdraw from the meeting after making their presentation, and then applicants or their agents. Representatives were offered the option of attending today's meeting in person, joining remotely via Microsoft Teams, or to provide a written statement to be read out on their behalf. And a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, except for national and major developments, which by their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The chair of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use the time allotted to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally material planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read the report. After all the representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Tracy. And just before we proceed to agenda item number 4, as usual, we have our legal expert, Laura Whitelaw, with us, and with her today is Charles Levenink, who's doing work experience within our legal team. Welcome, Charles. We hope you enjoy your time here. Charles is giving his time free to this council. So well done you, Charles, and thanks very much. Members, move on to agenda item number 4. It's an application for the erection of a marquee for use as a wedding venue, installation of septic tank and soak away information of passing places at Amosfield Tower, Amosfield, Dumfries. Its full application reference number 24/0087/full. The recommendation is to approve subject to conditions, and our case officer is Torrell Glendinning. Good morning, Torrell. Just take us through your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This application is in front of members today as it has received more than 6 objections. So the application site is located at Amosfield Tower, which is approximately 1 kilometre northwest of Amosfield village and about 8 kilometres north of Dumfries. Here we've got the block plan. The red line there is the walled garden, which the application site is within. The yellow rectangles there, that's some glass houses within the walled garden. And then you've got, just to the south of that is the tower, and then just south of that again is Amosfield House. Amosfield Tower is category A listed, and the walled garden and the house are category B listed. Here's the proposed block plan, and this shows the walled garden in blue, and then you've got the proposed site of the marquee is red in this on this map, and it would be located to the northern side of the walled garden. This shows as well the internal. All these roads are internal, so this is kind of just a wider site of the tower and the dwelling house. And then the C9N road is beyond this again, so all these roads you can see are internal. And this is the proposed marquee elevation. It would be of a typical finishes really and design for this type of structure. And then it would have a glass-sided wall on the southern elevation. And again, this is the floor plan of the marquee, relatively typical again for this type of structure. And here is a proposed site plan which shows areas for access, parking and turning for different vehicles, and yeah, just within the site or the wider site itself. Moving on to a wider view of the site and the general area, you've got the application site up in the left-hand side corner, and then the access road going down towards the C9N road, which it will take access from, or already does, but that's the one that will be used for access. And the application was subject to a number of objections that raised road traffic issues and concerns that this public road, the C9N, would not be suitable for this type of development. But the application has been supported by a transport access statement, and there's also various alterations and improvements proposed to the C9N road. The main improvements being the creation of 4 passing places, which you can see, you might be able to see on this photo or this map, but you can see them in more detail here. And none of the main roads consultees, so Council Roads Department, Transport Scotland and Police Scotland, and none of them have raised any objections subject to proposed conditions. This is actually a duplicate, so I'll just go past that one. So moving on to photographs, this is the application site. That's the glass houses in the marquee would be located just in front of those. And this is taken standing on the application site looking northeast. Again, standing on the application site looking south towards the tower and the house, and turning towards the west, just giving you a better view of the tower and the house. And this photograph is taken from the southwest. You can see the tower obviously in the middle, and then just left of that you've got the wall of the walled garden, and then the marquee would be then obviously beyond that within the walled garden. And this is the approach up from the internal access road towards the site and the tower. And this would be the view from the south, just as you enter the walled garden from the south, and the main house would just be on your left. And here you've got the junction onto the C9N road, looking both ways, north and south. So that concludes the presentation. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions which are outlined in the report. And as ever, I'm happy to answer any questions that members might have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Torrell. Any questions for our case officer? Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for your presentation. On page 26, I've got a couple of points. In paragraph 4.16, it says the passing places have been supported by a swept path analysis, which shows an agricultural vehicle being able to pass a minibus. Can you explain a wee bit more what that analysis actually involves? And, you know, what agricultural vehicle? Was it just a tractor? Was it a tractor trailer and minibus, you know, trying to pass each other? The second point, if I may, Chair, is 4.17. It says it's noted that the main types of vehicles to be used would be a car, minibus and delivery vans, although a coach could be made available if required. However, there's no mention about caravans. The Caravan Club have a CL site just along the road there, and you always get motorhomes and caravans coming along there as well, but there's no mention about that. You know, even if it's in relation to the passing places, as well as in relation to the application itself, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Campbell. It might be more a roads issue than Torrell's, but can you respond, please?
Yeah, so obviously I've gone by what the roads department have recommended, and they've deemed the passing places suitable for what they consider is necessary. Exactly how they've determined which vehicle is passing which, I don't actually know. It might have been useful to have them here, but in terms of the caravans, there's no proposed use of caravans for the site, but are you thinking caravans passing vehicles? Yeah. So again, that I think they have considered the largest possible options that they think are likely to meet. So I would imagine they consider a tractor with machinery potentially larger than caravans and cars.
Councillor Campbell.
If I may, Chair, yeah, it's. I would have thought that these would have been, you know, in the report, because it would be crucial, you know, if a large agricultural vehicle is trying to pass a motorhome or a caravan on that particular route, as well as people trying to make their way to the venue. Thanks.
I'll invite Mr. Sutty in, but before that I would have to say that you're entitled, of course, to object on the basis you're not comfortable if you feel strongly enough about that, but we have taken advice. Our officers have taken advice from the Roads Department. David?
Thanks, Chair. It's really just to say that obviously you've got a situation at the moment on the C9N where you can have caravans coming along there and meet tractors at the existing situation. There's a betterment here by putting 4 passing places in. If you're attaching conditions, it's got to be fair and reasonable and directly related to the proposal. So I think it is a proportionate response that you've got 4 passing places for this development. Caravans are not proposed as part of the development here. You're really just looking at taking small vehicles, mainly domestic scale vehicles, which may or may not encounter agricultural vehicles. They're entitled to use the public road as it is. So overall, I think there's a betterment, and as Torrell says, it's been looked at closely by our roads engineers who are comfortable with it.
Thanks, David. And I think as well, probably the venue will have a very short window when visitors come along. They're going to attend a function and then leave again. It will be an hourly routine. So I have Councillor Slater followed by Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Slater, David, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's really on the lines of what Councillor Campbell has mentioned about the roads, and what are really 2 things. One is obviously the width of the road, and 4 parking spaces. The issue I think here is how many cars, you're saying short windows as such, but how many cars will actually possibly go into that venue, and is there enough passing places, as the councillor said there, possibly larger vehicles as well. It appears to be quite a narrow road, so it's maybe something that the roads department maybe would like to maybe look at again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Slater. I think any change to the plan would have to be a refusal and sent back for an amendment, because we can't change any planning application before it's on the hoof. Councillor Dryborough, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This might be a weird question, but if it wasn't for the car parking spaces, would this have been permitted development?
Torrell, please.
No, I would need planning permission as long as it was used for more than 28 days a year.
Thanks, Councillor Dryborough.
Can I, because I mean, obviously a marquee is a movable, you can bring them up, put them down, and normally that would be classed as permitted development if it was a certain size. So I'm presuming it's just the size and the car parking that makes this a planning application.
Torrell again, or David? David.
Because the intention is to leave the marquee in situ permanently, it's not to do with the size, it's all to do with the fact that it's going to be there for more than 28 days in any calendar year. So it's really that does require. There is, I forget exactly where it is, but the report does make mention about permitted development rights. I think that's on page 37, about the fact that, sorry, no, it's removal. My mistake, jumping ahead. 27, yes. It goes on there about the general, it's paragraph 419 about the general permitted development order. So yes, that covers the 28 days, but because this is a permanent siting, it definitely would need.
Thanks, Councillor Dryborough. If there are no other questions for our case officer, we move to our registered speakers. The first speaker today is Malk Isherwood, who's an objector in person. Just come forward, Malk, please. And the procedure is that you'll be allowed 3 minutes to make a presentation. I'll remind you with 30 seconds to go to draw your presentation to conclusion. And if you'd be kind enough to wait, please, in case members have questions for you, I'd be grateful. So just whenever you're ready, Malk, thank you.
Right, okay, thank you. I'm Malk Isherwood, a parish councillor. I live in Amesfield, unlike the applicant and his colleague behind the business, the wedding business. They will not be disrupted by the consequences of this. I've been asked to speak by many residents who will be seriously affected as well by this application. I speak on their behalf. We know best these small single-track roads and tight junctions, and they will be severely affected by the increases in traffic caused by this application. We report to you directly and locally that these lanes are wholly unsuitable for what this proposal will bring. It will at times be deadlock and chaos. The caravans and tractors at the same time, for example, that intense short window that was referred to. We are the ones who want to continue, yet will fear for our lives, walking, cycling or running on these small, very narrow, single-width country lanes, no longer able to easily stroll with our dogs, our children and our grandchildren because of the increase in the amount of vehicles that will happen. We are also the ones feeling let down by one of our local elected councillors who should represent us all. There is a moral obligation to declare personal connections and conflicts of interests, maybe even financial gain, who knows, with applications such as this. We ask, why have they not done so? Because of the local consequences, simply making money, profiteering, should not be the overriding reason for this going ahead. The 4 proposed passing places, previously it was 6, will not remove the dangers on the narrow lanes. They are seen as a key solution to improving the traffic issue, and yet including them admits that there will be serious issues due to the unsuitability of these single-width lanes. However, we doubt the passing places might actually go ahead unless they are included as a condition, please. Besides which, even if built, they will neither remove the dangers and risks to life nor reduce the amount, size or regularity of traffic. The experts who don't raise objections will not be the ones kept awake on a Friday or Saturday night or at 1 o'clock on a Sunday morning by noisy traffic outside our doors, to and from the tower. We will be the ones who will be disturbed and disrupted and whose lifestyles will be worse because of it. And so we ask you to please oppose this application in order to retain the peace and quality of life of all those who will be badly affected by it, and to respect the low traffic use that these small, narrow country lanes are intended for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Back on 3 minutes. Any questions for Mr. Isherwood? Councillor Moretti, please.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation, Malcolm. You said that the lane is used by walkers and whether it's dogs, children, families. How much space is there actually there to walk on? And if they're forced to leave the road, what's the conditions like on that section?
There are no pavements along the stretch of road. There are rough grass verges and hedges, and the tarmac, which is a single car width wide. Anybody that tries to walk along there, or recently I was running along there and had to dive into a hedge because of a car speeding along the straight section. Cars see that it's straight and narrow and put their foot down because they try to get to the passing place that's the junction further along. So the moment it's bad, this will make it far worse.
Thank you, Councillor Moretti. Any other questions for Mr. Isherwood? In that case, thank you very much for being here today, sir. Thank you. We now have a statement from a supporter. Tracy, can you read out the statement, please? It's from Amanda Patterson.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Amanda Patterson, a supporter. Unfortunately, due to personal appointment, I am unable to attend your meeting today, but would ask for the following statement for the above application, as well as my written comments during the proposed planning stage. A parish overview. As written, Amesfield Tower is a landmark, an integral part of our parish and village, which we have all recognised as a significant property for various reasons. The Johnson family have been resident in the tower over 4 generations, and during that same period, we, the Patterson family, have been neighbours for 108 years. The Johnson family have been very generous to our community in a number of areas. We would not have our private village hall, which they donated and built for the people of Tynwald Parish. My own children would not have been able to attend the local village school 25 years ago due to full capacity if the Johnson family had not donated the land on which the additional classroom was built and allowed our village and parish school to thrive and grow to what it is today. The children wear on their uniform with pride Amesfield Tower as their school logo. Our local children would not have a play park if it was not for the Johnson family donating the land. The family have always made the grounds available to the parish for fetes, intimate weddings in the actual tower, or wedding photographs in the grounds with the tower as a landmark. In a whole, this parish has been supported, funded and welcomed to Amesfield Tower over many generations. As said in my written response, the wedding venue will give many young people in our parish an opportunity to work at the weddings. Sadly, due to poor rural transport infrastructure, this is not possible for our young people to obtain evening and weekend work. With regards to this planning application, gives the Johnson family an opportunity to raise important finance to continue to look after and maintain such a historic property for many years to come for the enjoyment of local families. As a neighbour and someone who has spoken to many residents since the application was presented, the majority have shown support for the proposed wedding venue and can see the benefit for the wider community, and I would therefore ask the Council Planning Committee to endorse this application as a whole.
Thanks very much, Tracy. We now move on to the next registered speaker, who is Jamie Johnston, the applicant. So if you'd like to come forward, Jamie, please. You will have the same opportunity, Jamie. You'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. I'll ask you to draw it to or I'll remind you with 30 seconds to go to draw it to a conclusion. If you'd be kind enough to wait in case members have questions for you, I'd be grateful. So just whenever you're ready, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Johnston. I'm the applicant. My sister and I took over ownership of Amesfield Tower back in 2021, and are now fully responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the house and the grounds. Whilst we're very fortunate to own such an historic property, it does require significant investment of both time and finances in order to maintain it to the standard it deserves and prevent the house and grounds from falling into a state of disrepair. The primary goal of this application is to enable us to provide weddings which can be enjoyed by couples from all over Dumfries and beyond, and also to allow us to generate revenue to fully reinvest into the estate to preserve its heritage with no intention to profiteer. Alongside this, the venue and house will employ a number of young people in and around Dumfries and benefit the local economy as a whole. The day-to-day running of the venue will be handled by Queensberry Events, who previously ran weddings successfully for 7 years at Dalswinton Estate, just 10 minutes away from Amesfield. Their experience will guarantee a professionally run operation in line with all the recommended guidelines and regulations for hosting weddings. We note no objections at all were raised from each of the consultations undertaken, subject to certain conditions, and that these consultations directly focus on the areas to which objections were raised against the application. We've also taken into account the key initial concerns of the Roads Authority and agreed to install 4 passing places on the entry road to the venue at significant personal cost. This will not only allow a smoother operation of the venue, but also be a benefit to the community as a whole, as the road has been in need of improvement for some time. As has been discussed, this has now been accepted by Transport Scotland, the Roads Authority and Police Scotland. We also know that there is an allowance to erect marquees, as has been discussed, for 28 days of the year without planning permission. This would allow us to operate weddings on a partial basis, but needing to put up and bring down the marquee on a regular basis. The approval of this application, therefore, will enable us to avoid this, thus reducing footfall into and out of the venue for each wedding, but also allowed us to provide the best experience for guests and operate more efficiently and maximise ability to reinvest into the estate. Thank you for your time and trust this assists with your decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Any questions? I have Councillor Pauline Drysdale, followed by Councillor Archie Dryborough.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Jamie. Thank you for your presentation. Having been in this industry, we're not doing that kind of catering anymore. My understanding for that size of event, with the numbers you're looking at, you're kind of looking at one large-ish lorry for tables and chairs. Is that correct? Do you hire those in for each event? That's my first question. I'll ask you the 3 questions if that's okay.
Yep.
Number 2, I would envisage with staff for those, that sort of number, if you're doing the bar and the food, that would be just 2 4x4s with staff
Pauline,
and 2 trailers.
One of the members can't hear you properly.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I think that's better, yeah.
It's not. That's very unusual for me, I might add. That's the first.
Can you start again, please?
Yes, so I have 3 questions, Jamie, if that's okay. I used to do this type of catering, we no longer do in our family business, and I would envisage that you have, on average, 1 vehicle if you're bringing in tables and chairs, if that's correct. So can you just confirm with me? That would be a medium-sized lorry. And then if you had, for that kind of number, you're looking at just 2 4x4s with 2 small trailers for doing alcohol and food service. That would be it. And I think, could you just confirm, the third question, could you please confirm that if I am also a caravaner and I manage some land, that excuse my ignorance, but again, David might keep me right here if I'm asking the wrong person, are the lay-bys designed to be large enough for that lorry to pass or pull in and let a caravan with a trailer go by, space-wise, or a tractor, say, pulling silage lorries? That's really my 3 questions. Thank you, Jamie.
No problem. Thanks for the question. In terms of the transport in and out, as I said, it's going to be run by Queensbury Events, who are a specialist wedding company. They have their own set of tables and chairs, etc. The intention will be to keep them on site. There's ample space for it, so hopefully that will be an initial delivery, and then no need for further ones. For catering, etc., I can't speak officially because they're handling that, but yeah, I think the intention is to have one load for each trip. So yes, for each wedding there'll be essentially 2 cars coming in and out.
Would those 2 cars, in my experience, not have to have a tow bar and a small trailer on the back for the food and the alcohol? Yeah. So in total, 3 movements, I would imagine.
Correct.
3 in, 3 out. Yeah, is that correct?
Correct.
And the lay-by size, do you perceive that lay-by designed to be big
Again,
enough to
not an
incorporate
area
that?
specialist for me, but I have been through it with them. I understand it's got to be 5.5 metres wide,
Right.
including the lay-by space, which my understanding is that is enough for 2 agricultural vehicles to pass each other. So it's the maximum width required for effectively any vehicle. But my understanding is the caravan's similar width to a minibus. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't, and
Okay.
as has been said,
Okay, thank
they're
you.
always on the road.
Thanks very much, Pauline. Councillor Dryburgh, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Jamie, for your presentation. I don't know whether they call them lay-bys or passing places after that one. So the passing places, obviously the community council are concerned, and I have to say the community council, not the parish council. There's no such a thing in Dumfries and Galloway. The community council are concerned that you will not put them in if this comes forward and goes to approval. I'm just wondering if you've had any discussions with anybody about this in the local community, and are you most definitely going to put these passing places in?
Yeah, no problem. Well, we actually presented this to the parish council, not the community council. So, yeah, the parish council.
There are community councils in Scotland, there are parish councils in England.
Okay, apologies. And yeah, that was probably the main discussion. Well, along the whole trip through this application, it's been the main sort of discussion point. So we discussed with everyone. The majority were very accepting of the proposal. We've already started the discussions with Kevin Morrison, I believe, from the Roads Authority in terms of putting the RCC that you need in place. We also have a specialist independent contractor who he wrote the transport statement up for us, so he's also going to lead that side of things. So we've already started the process. And my understanding is that if the approval is given, that will be one of the main conditions. So, yeah, fully intending on doing it. It seems to be a longer process than I thought it was going to be. It's effectively a new planning permission. But yeah, we will 100% be putting them in place. The only thing I probably would add to that is, obviously, there is that 28-day allowance, which we do intend to use for part of this year.
Thanks very much, Councillor Dryburgh. And for the benefit of all members, if this permission is granted, condition 4 requires the 4 passing places to be installed, and the development cannot proceed unless that these passing places are introduced. I don't see any other questions. Oh, Councillor Drysdale.
Yeah, Jamie, sorry, just one last question. What is your perception in terms of your licensing hours for events that you're going to be running? Are you looking at midnight or later than that? Thank you.
Proposed is 12:30.
Thanks very much. And we don't deal with licensing here. It's simply planning a legislation we deal with. I have now a hand up. I can't see quite who it is yet. Councillor Slater.
Thank you, Chair. It's really about the passing places. what actual length have they cut into the roadside for how many vehicles? Like large vehicles, is there spaces for that? And how far is it basically taking all the roadside away to make this passing place as well? I assume that permissions will have to be given from the roads department for that.
The roads department have specified the width and length of the passing places, and they have said that that's adequate provision to be able to allow them to support the application. But if you have a question, the applicant's still here with us. But the roads department have said quite categorically that they're content with the passing places as set out in the application.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Beretti.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to that, but it's a different subject. The maintenance of the passing places, who's going to be responsible if they start to degrade?
I take it that's a question for the applicant.
My understanding, well, I'm 99% sure that once we're completed, and they have to be completed to Roads Authority standards, which is a significant standard. It's certainly not a case of just putting some tarmac on the road. It is then adopted by the council once approved.
Thank you. Do you know, Tracy or David, if the council are about to adopt these passing places?
I'm just looking at the roads consultation response, and basically what they're saying is that there's a need to apply for roads construction consent for the passing places, and provided that's done, it would then form part of the public road.
I have our legal expert Laura with us anyway. Laura, can you just confirm the situation for us, please?
Yes, that the situation as David sets out, once the road construction consent is issued, if the road's delivered in accordance with that, then it becomes part of the adopted road, and there are enforcement provisions available if the road's not completed in accordance with the plans that are submitted.
Thanks, Laura. If there are no further questions for Mr Johnson, thank you very much, sir, for being here today. Members, we're in session. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks very much, Chair. I see no reason why we shouldn't go forward with this application and agree with the recommendations as suggested in the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm still a wee bit unsure what the length of the passing places are. It doesn't actually say it in the report. I know it's from the Roads Department, but I think what Councillor Drysdale was picking up on was that if a car and caravan had to pull into one of these, would it be long enough? I think that's where most of us feel if the length is appropriate, I'm happy to support this application. But, you know, if we can get confirmation of the actual length of the passing places to allow a car and caravan to pull in, to allow other vehicles to get past, and then I'm happy to support this application.
I don't know. David, do you have a length for this? But because the point is, of course, that what we're dealing with here is a recommendation or an acceptance by the Roads Authority that the provision will be adequate. So if you're not content with that, if you're not content with that and you can't get specifics, then that's fine. Councillor Dryborough.
Chair, obviously we've been in that position of chair of roads at one particular time. There is a standard size, and the council would not adopt unless it was that particular size.
It would appear the applicant knows the length if members are happy to have him come back.
Well, I think one of the questions was directed at the applicant, but I don't think he actually gave the length. I think he said 5 metres is the width. That's including the road and, you know, the passing place itself. That'll be the total width to allow 2 vehicles to pass. But I don't think the length for pulling in, you know, with a vehicle.
We will allow the applicant to let you know the length if he has that to hand.
So 5.5 metres is the total width requirement. So obviously depends on the width of the road and the space alongside it. So these ones will be, I think it's the exact figure, I'm not sure if it's around 1.5 metre additional width onto the road to make sure it's that 5.5 metre length width, and then it's 10 metres total length, obviously, and then there's an additional length that is the sort of access on either side. So plenty of space for
Thank you very much,
cars.
Mr. Johnson. So, Happy with that? Okay. So we now have Councillor Dryburgh proposing we go with office recommendation, and Councillor Campbell has seconded that, and I have Councillor Slater looking to speak. No, okay, that's fine. Okay, if there are no alternative views, can you confirm the decision of the committee, please? And thanks very much, Torrell, for being with us today.
Thanks, Chair. Members have agreed to approve the application subject to the conditions detailed within the report.
We move on to agenda item number 5, members. An application for the erection of 2 dwelling houses with integral garages and roof-mounted solar panels and installation of air source heat pumps at land adjacent to 5 Valleyfield Meadow, Terregles, Dumfries. It's full application, reference number 24/0218/full. The recommendation is approved subject to conditions, and our case officer is Philip Glennon. I think, Philip, this is your first time with us as well, so welcome. And when you're online, just take us through your presentation, please.
Hello. Apologies, sir. Thank you very much, Councillor. As said previously, the application is for the erection of 2 dwelling houses, 2 detached dwelling houses with integral garages and roof-mounted solar panels and the installation of air source heat pumps. As previously alluded to, the recommendation is to approve, and the application is appearing in front of the planning committee as 6 or more timely objections have been received. As I'm sure all councillors read the delegated report.
Philip,
yeah.
we have BSL, British Sign Language interpreters, and you're going a bit too fast for them to be able to relay that message to one of our elected members. So if you start again, please, and just a little bit slower. Thank you.
Many thanks from the interpreter, Chair. Thank you.
My apologies. As previously said, the application is for the erection of 2 dwelling houses with integral garages and the installation of air source heat pumps and solar panels. The application is appearing in front of the planning committee as 6 or more objections have been received, and the officer's recommendation is to approve. As the councillors, I'm sure, have read the delegated report, this will be a short summary of the report in question. Could I have the next slide, if possible, please? This is the location plan of the proposed application site. As shown, it's located to the northern side of Valleyfield Meadow within Terregles. The application site currently comprises an area of land of approximately 1,734 square metres, which is currently grassland. It is important to note there is a planning permission in principle which is still active for the erection of 2 dwelling houses on the same application site. Could I have the next slide if possible? This is a proposed block plan which shows the layout of the site. It shows the dwelling houses are surrounded, that the 2 proposed dwelling houses are surrounded by existing dwelling houses the all side, with the majority of surrounding dwelling houses being single story. As shown above, that there is a majority, there is plenty of amenity space for both dwelling houses, and there'll be access through Valleyfield Meadows. Next slide if possible, please. As worth noting, this is the proposed elevations for both the south and north elevations of plot 1 and plot 2. The next slide onwards will also show the proposed side elevations for the dwelling houses. It's considered that the dwelling houses are single story in nature, which is reflective of the area, with the red brick finish to the front, and render the remainder of the elevations with a grey Galloway tiled roof and brown UPC windows. It's considered that the applicant has submitted the height of the surrounding properties and the proposed properties, and the properties will sit well in between the surrounding properties. Given that they're set back from the boundaries of all sites, there will be no issues of overbearing or loss of life for the surrounding property. In order to control development, a condition is recommended to remove permitted development rights to prevent any roof space accommodation, which will remove the possibility of overlooking for any surrounding property. Could I have the next slide if possible, please? This slide shows the floor plans for plot 1 and plot 2. The dwelling houses are the same design, they're just rotated to accommodate for each one on the site, as seen by the floor plans. It's considered the main impact from the proposal is from the rear elevation, which contains a utility room, a bathroom and bedroom windows, which are faced towards number 7 and number 8 Valleyfield Park. As the utility and bathroom windows are not habitable rooms and the bathroom window will come with frosted glass, there's not considered to be any issues of overlooking or loss of privacy from the surrounding properties for these windows. It is, however, considered that there is a bedroom window on each property which will facing the number 7 and number 8. The distances in question is 18 metres between the rear elevation window, bedroom window, the number 7, and 16.8 metres, the number 8. The supplementary guidance on alterations and extensions to dwelling houses recommends that the distance between habitable windows and separate dwellings should be 18 metres. In this case, as well, one of these dwellings would comply and the other one is in quite close proximity. It's therefore considered by the LPA and myself that this would not warrant grounds for refusal, as it is just short of the recommended distance, which is only a recommendation and is not set in stone. It is, however, considered that due to the site being surrounded by smaller boundaries, which are comprised of a mixture of fences and brick walls, which vary in height, a boundary treatment condition would be applied, which means that the dwelling houses could not be occupied until the boundary treatments have been approved by the LPA. Within this condition, there is a minimum recommended height of 2 metres. The following slides will give photo context to the councillors, which I'll quickly explain. If possible, could I have the next slide? This just shows the access point into the site and the Valleyfield Meadows. This application site is located to the right-hand side here, with the surrounding properties being mainly red brick, single-storey or storey-and-a-half dwellings, with a couple of properties being finished in render. The next slide, if possible. This just gives a view into the site, which shows it is currently grassland with a couple of smaller trees located to the front, which is outside of the application site in question. The next slide, please. This just gives an overview of the western boundary of the site, which, as you can see, faces on a couple of dwelling houses, which are separated in this case by a small brick wall of approximately 1 metre. And the next slide, please. This just highlights the eastern boundary of the site, which is contained by a larger fence. I'm not 100% sure of the height, but is a larger wood fence with I think this is the last slide, councillors, showing the northern boundary, which has been previously mentioned. As mentioned before, the properties on the other side do have windows facing in, but it is considered that due to the distances involved and the boundary treatment, which would have to be implemented, that there would not be any issues of overlooking or loss of privacy into the properties. I think that is the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions from councillors, and apologies about the fast speaking. Hopefully this was a bit more suitable for I'm not sure what, for Mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Any questions for our case officer? I have Councillor Campbell and then Councillor Drysdale.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. One of the objections is around the reduction of public open space. Now, I was looking at, on page 37, paragraph 4.11 at the bottom of the page. Now, there was the original application in 2008, and I'm just wondering what part of the public space was actually conditioned in that application that should remain, because it's not quite clear on here. It does say that the main area of public open space for the residential development, which also incorporates the SUDS area, would remain in front of what is now referred to as application as Plot 2. So it looks quite a big area, but was that whole area conditioned on the original application when that development took place? And is this a reduction of green space? Thanks, Chair.
I'll get Mr Sucky to respond to you, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Abby, could you maybe take it back to the location plan, the very first slide? That one. You'll note on page 34 there's the fairly extensive planning history that goes in. The key one to note is the 2014 reference one, 14P30455. That's the one which sets out the confines of the current situation. So what you can see, that the red line is the one that has the extant planning permission principle on it for 2 houses. The area of land that is shown as open space there is covered by a deed of conditions, that area of open space is to remain. It also includes the SUDS area, so it physically couldn't be used for anything else. So that area in the southeast corner is going to remain in perpetuity, but there is a valid planning permission principle for 2 houses within that red line. So that issue has already been covered.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering if we can get the photograph up from the road that looked onto the whole field. It might give us a perspective of where that was.
David City, please.
That one there. So where you're seeing the trees along the frontage, the vast majority of what you're seeing in the centre of the slide there is that retained area of open space with the SUDS in it. The access is over the left-hand side of that photo, just where you've got the house with the PV cells on the roof. So what you're seeing in front of you, that would remain.
Thanks, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Drysdale, please.
Councillor Campbell's actually asked my exact question, so I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Slater, please.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the photograph of the land, to me it looks a little bit wet. Is that possible? Is it drained well, or does it need drainage as well to build these houses on that piece of land? But just the photographs show it looks a rather wet area. Thank you.
It doesn't appear it's been consulted with SEPA, so I don't suppose it is flood risk, David.
It wouldn't be something which, I would say it is a SUDS area. It's not a sort of application which we would be able to consult SEPA on. It's below their threshold. As far as I'm aware, there is no flood risk issue to the site. The agent is here as well. I'm sure he'll be able to provide you with some further details if you need information about the actual nature of the site.
So you can ask Homer Young when he comes on if that is wetland and if it's a flood risk, David. That would be great, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for our case officer, we'll move to the registered speakers. So we have a statement to be read out. It's Carrie Robinson, who's an objector.
Next year is Carrie Robinson, objector. I wish the following statement to be considered by the committee. I have multiple sclerosis and work from home as a reasonable adjustment to my conditions of employment as per the Disability Discrimination Act. As such, I work full-time from home in an office at the rear of my property, which affords me privacy, connectivity and peace to carry out my role. The rear of my property directly looks onto the site of the proposed development. My property currently has housing on 3 sides, and the only area which provides me with a degree of privacy is the rear of the property. The proposed development would have a significant adverse impact upon my privacy. It would mean I am overlooked on every aspect of my home, and it would mean that I would have no privacy in my garden, which is directly overlooked by the site plan and would also directly impact upon my privacy in the rear of my property, where I work and spend the majority of my family life. It's imperative to my medical condition that I can access an outdoor space, as sometimes my condition limits my mobility to the extent that my garden is the only place where I can get fresh air and spend some time outside of the home. Article 8 of the Human Rights Act protects my right to respect for my private life, my family life, my home and my correspondence. Should committee endorse this application, this would interfere with my rights under this Act due to the location of the intended development. I also cite the impact of the build on the natural environment of the proposed development. The land where the intended development is has a number of mature trees, and a variety of wildlife uses this land, i.e. badgers, owls, oyster catchers and other birds. Previous planning applications submitted highlighted the area of land directly behind my house as one which would remain fallow, i.e. a green area. The current proposed development seems to have ignored this, as was previously the case. I also highlight that this proposed development would significantly overdevelop the existing site. The name of my home and the adjacent streets use the name Valleyfield. The endorsement of this development would mean there is no longer a Valleyfield and would effectively mean the loss of the identity of the village and consign it to another overdeveloped suburb of Dumfries.
Thank you very much, Tracy. We now have the next registered speaker, which is Homer Young, who's the agent for the applicant, and he's joining us via Microsoft Teams. Good morning, Homer. I'm sure you know well the procedure before now. 3 minutes to make your presentation, 30 seconds I'll remind you to wind up, and if you'd remain in case members have questions for you, well, Councillor Slater has one anyway, so I'd be grateful if you'd wait after you've made your presentation. Whenever you're ready, Homer, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. I'm Homer Young. I'm the agent for the applicant, and I'm here to provide support for this application. We feel we have designed 2 single-storey dwellings for the site, which have material finishes which reflect the surrounding properties, and we're in agreement with the case officer's report that these properties will fit well into the existing streetscape. Although the properties have a floor areas of around 240 square metres, which includes garages and plant rooms, these are not excessive for the surrounding area. Many of the existing properties surrounding the site have floor areas ranging from 220 square metres at 8 Valleyfield Park, which excludes the detached garage, to 312 square metres at 2 Valleyfield Meadows directly opposite the site. The dwellings have been designed to maximise the use of the site whilst maintaining privacy for the existing dwellings surrounding the plot, mainly relating to window positions, blank gables, etc. We note that the dwellings are larger than those indicatively shown on the planning and principal application. However, they were simply indicative footprints, not fully designed dwellings. We believe that the dwelling design before you today not only suit the site, but are similar to the dwelling styles in the area. We have also amended the proposed drawings by reducing the roof pitches as per the conditions of the previous planning and principal application and taking account of all other previous conditions. We propose that the application meets both LDP2 and NPF4, and the dwellings are suitably scaled, sited and designed and are in keeping with the character of the area. To keep it brief today, I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Homer, and thank you for being so brief. I have Councillor Slater with a question for you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Looking at the land, it looks rather wet in the photographs. Does it need more drainage, or does it drain well, or does I believe SEPA hasn't been asked because it's below their question level as such for that type of land. But what I'm really asking for is, does it need drainage, and is it wetland? Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, no. The land drains freely. You know, there's an engineered design suds basin in the area of public open space adjacent to the site, which wouldn't have been able to be installed, should the area, be at risk of flooding or wetness. So as far as we're concerned, no, there's no issues with flooding or any other issues on the site.
Thanks very much, Homer. Thank you, Councillor Slater. Are there any other questions for the applicant's agent? In that case, thank you very much for being with us today, Homer. Members are now in session. Councillor Dryborough.
Chair, I see no planning reasons why this shouldn't go forward as recommended within the report.
Thank you, Councillor John Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, back to page 37, 4.10. It says permitted development rights should be removed by way of a condition. I don't actually see that in the conditions. If that was added, I'm happy to support this application.
It's already in condition 2, but Councillor Mr. Sutty will confirm that for you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, at the foot of page 38, condition 2 basically removes permitted development rights falling under part 1, which is domestic dwelling houses.
Sorry, Chair, missed that.
Thanks, Councillor Campbell. I have Councillor Carruthers and then Councillor Drysdale.
No, just happy to support this for the same reasons outlined, but that fully suspensive conditions there, and I would agree with that because of the size and mass of the actual house. It's a big footprint. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drysdale.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Do you mind if I just ask Mr Sutty, in the recommended decision, page 38.2, whereby it says that the application for planning permission for such development has to be submitted and approved by the council as a planning authority. David, are you able to confirm with us that within that condition that you will be able to check the public open space and amenity is to an acceptable level, shall we say?
Mr Sutton.
Thank you.
There's no additional conditions about open space retention because my understanding is that the area which I mentioned before in the southeast corner is already covered by a legal deed of conditions, so it has to remain. If in doubt, our legal expert Laura could confirm that, Chair.
Laura, do you have any advice for members?
I don't have the deed of conditions in front of me, so I can't speak to that. But my understanding is that all we're doing here is permitting development within the red line space, and the open space is not within that space. So therefore, we're not granting permission for that area to be developed.
Thanks, Laura. Members are happy to proceed on that basis. In that case, we have a proposal from Councillor Dryborough, and although I don't have a formal second, Councillor Carruthers, sorry. If there's an alternative view, please let me hear it. If not, Tracy, can you confirm the decision of the committee, please?
Chair, members have agreed to approve the application subject to the conditions detailed within the report.
Move on to agenda item number 6, an application for the erection of a dwelling house with integral garage, installation of air source heat pump and formation of access onto C14N Public Road at Site B, land opposite Stainton Vale, Mains Head to Regals, Dumfries. It's a full application reference number 24/0230/full. Recommendation is to approve subject conditions, and the case officer once again is Philip Glennon. So again, just slowly please to allow our BSL interpreters to keep up with you and your presentation whenever you're ready, Philip. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Councillor. As previously mentioned, the application is for the erection of a dwelling house with integral garage and installation of air source heat pump and formation of access on the C14N Public Road. The application is in in front of the Planning Committee as 6 or more timely objections have been received, and a statutory consultee, which is Terry Glass Community Council, have objected to the application. As I'm sure the councillors have read the delegated report, this is a short summary of the report and application in question. Could I have the next slide if possible, please? The location plan, as shown here, shows that the application site is located the southern side of C14N Public Road. The application site is located within a sloping area. The area in question is sloping, with the site itself sloping from the road backwards, so from the north to the south, and the area in question also sloping. This can be shown on the proposed block plan as shown to the right here, as Ladywell will be sat down in a slightly lower position, with the property known as Glenanne in a raised position. It is important to note quickly that this application is being done under full application, as there was previously planning permissions and principles and ARC submitted, but the planning permissions in principle did prevent any land raising, and as such, because the application involves land raising, it had to be submitted as a full application. Next slide if possible, please. The proposed elevations as shown here show a 1.5-story design, which will be finished in render with grey cedral cladding and concrete tiled roof alongside grey windows and doors. It's considered that the proposed dwelling will sit well in between Ladywell and Glenanne, with the height being sat slightly higher than Ladywell and sat down from Glenanne, and as such being acceptable. It's considered that the main impact of the proposal is upon Ladywell, which has a rear elevation window close to the boundary fence. It's considered upon balance that this window will face towards but not directly into the side elevation as shown on the right hand side of the slide here. This is the blank gable. As such, there's no loss of privacy for the occupants of Ladywell. It is considered that there may be some, if not minimal, loss of light this window as a result of the proposed dwelling house, given that it will not directly align with the window, but in effect that the residential amenity of Ladywell would not be severely or adversely impact the detrimental standard to justify the refusal of a planning permission. Can I have the next slide, please? Next slide just shows the proposed floor plans of the dwelling house. As it is worth noting, the proposed balcony to the rear faces away from all neighbouring properties, and as such will not result in any loss of light. Most of the windows do face away from the neighbouring properties, apart from the stairway window, which is shown on both sides to the right-hand side of the drawings. But given that this faces Glenam and is not a habitable room, there's no loss of privacy, and as such there's no issues from a loss of privacy sense. Could I have the next slide, please? The next slide is the proposed sections, which demonstrate that there is a measure of land raising involved within the application. This is required, as previously alluded to, due to the sloping nature of the site. The land raising varies between 1 metre to the north, which is the front elevation of the dwelling house, and 2 metres to the south, which is the rear elevation of the house. It is worth acknowledging that the condition which would have prevented it from being done under the planning permission principle was requested by Flood Risk Management, who have been consulted for this application but do not believe that this will result in any risk of flooding, and as such they do not see the need for the condition to be imposed on this application. The following slides will give a visual context to the site. Next slide, if possible, please. This just shows the face view into the site, which shows Ladywell to the left and Glenalm to the right, and that the site is currently vacant. Next slide, possible, please. This just gives a view in from the site towards the road, which is facing towards the north, just to show that the site is not exactly flat. As you can see, there is a raised nature to the left-hand side of the photo, which is Glenalm, with a slightly lower site to the right, which is with Ladywell. Next slide, if possible, please. These two photos just give the western and eastern views to the site. The western view is towards Glenalm, where we previously raised that the stairway window will face towards, and the eastern view is Ladywell. Next slide, please. This just gives an overview of the C41M public road, which the formation of access will be done onto. It's considered that as there's no issues identified by roads subject to conditions, there's no problem with the formation of access on this road, and there will not be any issues. I believe that is the end of the slides. Fine. I thank councillors for the application. If they've got any queries, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thanks very much, Philip. Any questions for our case officer? David Slater and then Pauline Drysdale, please. Councillor Slater.
Yes, I'd like to ask the case officer, there appears to be a number of trees there. Is it fact that, or possible, these trees are going to be cut down, taking away more natural environment? And also, you say something about uplifting land. Exactly what do you mean there? You mean you're actually lifting the land to part of the land you have to fill in to build the house on, or is that actually part of a garden? Thank you.
Philip, please.
Councillor, if possible, could we go back to the proposed sections? It might be handy for the councillor's query just to show this. It is worth noting there is a couple of not so mature trees on site which may be removed. The majority of the trees were contained beyond the application site. So where the photo was taken is actually slightly beyond the application site. This will not form part of it as shown on the proposed block plan. In regards to the land raising for the councillor, the land raising is shown on the proposed sections. And if we could go back to that slide, please. The land raising is needed. This would be land raising. This means the house has to be built on some form of foundation, as shown here. The black line, which is curving down, shows the existing land level of Ladywell. It's considered that land raising is needed because the site is a sloping site. You would have to either dig down or you would have to build on top of it, and as part of this, the house is in a slightly elevated position, which involves the foundations being laid that way. I hope that answers the councillor query.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks, David. Councillor Drysdale and then Councillor Crothers.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for the presentation. It's just to confirm, obviously one of the objections has been that in page 45, 3.2, it raises land above what was permitted in the original planning permission in principle, and we see that on page 46 in the principle of development, that the land, in the last sentence, that land raising is proposed which is contrary to the conditions of the planning permission in principle. So is it possible to condition it, which it has probably been already, sorry, excuse my ignorance, that the council will check that level of land raising so that it does comply with the original application? Does that make sense? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Pauline. Philip?
Councillor, this is a separate application from the plan permission in principle. The plan and permission in principle back a number of years and been renewed several times. At the time the original planning permission in principle was granted, it covered both Glen Anne and Ladywell, with the flood risk management team requesting a condition at the time which required a minimum floor level of 30.02. I may be slightly off on that, and it also required no land raising. As part of it, this application, because that condition was requested by flood risk management team, they were consulted and they no longer believe that that condition is necessary. That in part could be because Glen Anne was later approved without that condition. As such, because that condition exists, it must appear in front of us as a full application rather than an ARC, which would be the continuation of the planning permission principle. I hope that answers the councillor's query if possible.
Thanks very much, Philip. I'll get David, Mr. City, just to add to that, please.
Yes, just for the avoidance of doubt, what's set at the bottom of page 46 is the condition that was attached to the planning permission principle. Because this application doesn't comply with that, it has to come in not as what's called approval of matters specified in conditions. It's got to be a whole new full planning permission. So what you're effectively saying, if we can go maybe back to the presentation, yeah, that one there. What you can see maybe best at the bottom right-hand corner is that you've got what was called Site A is set at a slightly higher level, and then it goes across the site to the right-hand side, which is where Ladywell is. That's at a slightly lower level. So this is sitting in between, and effectively you wouldn't be able to get the proposed house on the site unless you were doing some land raising, which means it does need a whole new full planning permission. There's no conditions attached requiring it to be that same level to this permission, but all you would have permission for is what you see there. It's not going above or below that. Hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer.
Councillor Drysdale.
Chair. So, David, sorry to ask again, but just to confirm, I mean, obviously when we're building new properties in Dumfries and Galloway, we have to think of how high and low with regards to what the community feel. So this 30.2 that the officer mentioned earlier? Was it 30.2?
Mr. Sutty.
30.002. Could we talk about conditioning that in, or is that not possible? That comes at a later stage, just if you can confirm that.
No, that cannot be conditioned. It's got an extant planning permission in principle on site. Instead of being able to submit what normally comes in for just the details, that's called, Philip was referring to it as an ARC, that's our abbreviation for approval of matters specified in conditions. That's a more straightforward application. But because it cannot comply with the condition that was attached to the planning permission principle, this is what they're proposing. We can't attach any condition other than, the only thing you probably could do is say that it's got to be carried out in strict accordance with what's on the plans there. That's the only thing which we could do if that would assist with members' concerns. But no, you couldn't have that condition that's at the set out at page 46.
Thanks, Councillor Drysdale. Councillor Carruthers, Ian.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wonder how non-material variations would maybe work under that circumstances. David, would be one question, but it's supplemented to the one I had. I know they have to be applied for, obviously, but I just think because normally you get a degree of tolerance subject to. But so that's one. The other one was I maybe missed it because I was trying to work out the footprint here as the I'd say, and I think I worked that out. But it's more the condition 2 again, removal of permittable development rights. It's the same as the last one. Is I maybe missed, but Philip maybe covered that, why that was missed out, why that's been removed, just to get clarification on that particular point, please, Chairman, along with the first point.
Thanks, right, Councillor Carruthers. Mr. Sutty.
If you have a condition on that says it's got to be built in strict accordance with what's shown on the approved plans, you couldn't accept a non-material variation unless you set in a, like we do with wind farms, there's a micro-siting, you could say, within a tolerance of. But if it is something which is materially different, that would require a further application. Indeed, that's kind of what happened with Site A. There was issues with the levels which went on there from memory. Sorry, what was the second part again?
Removal of permittable development rights is condition 2. And just so I'm clear why that is, please.
Right, that was the main issue there was in terms of any windows potentially overlooking into Ladywell. That was they could add a further extension in due course, which would then be looking into Ladywell. And we want to make sure that that's controlled. It's not saying that they can't have an extension in due course, but it's just saying that we want to see that, allow neighbours to have a look at it rather than have permitted development rights just to do something which could adversely affect their amenity.
No, thank you very much for that, David. You too, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Colours. Now we're still in questions for the case officer, Mr. or Councillor Slater.
Yes, we'd just like to ask why the land has been raised. Is it because of the risk of possible flooding? Why it has to be raised? Is it because of flooding, possible flooding in the surrounding area?
Mr. Sutty.
Certainly that's the application that's been submitted to us. I think to get the actual house which is proposed on the site and to get it to work in terms of access and the sort of levels you require for that, they've had no choice but to raise the levels. And as I say, that there is a gradation going from what was Site A to Ladywell. This is sort of the bit in between, so it's higher, medium, lower, is I think how it's operating. Unfortunately, I noticed neither the applicant nor agent are here today. They could have explained these things a lot better because it is their application, their proposal, not ours. But as I say, there's a written statement, I note, but there's nobody here to answer any questions from the applicant side, I'm afraid.
It's a little bit disappointing that they're not here today to answer these questions.
You need to put your microphone on.
Oh, sorry. It's a little bit disappointing to hear that the applicants are not here today or an agent to answer these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a daft laddie question. I'm looking at page 41, the plan that's on there, the Ordnance Survey map. Now, it looks as if there's a sort of like a path that takes you behind the site, and it looks as if it's heading towards Ladywell Chapel. I'm just wondering, is that a public right of way, and would that have to be reconfigured, taken out of the site itself? Thanks, Chair.
Philip might have this, Philip or Mr. Sutty.
From the site visit, there's no defined public right of way from my knowledge, and there's none within the site constraints. I'm not sure why that appears that way on the block plan, but from the site visit as well, there is no access onto the site. There's no gate, there's no real access. You have to jump over what is a small perimeter fence to get in. So I don't assume there is any public right of way, but I stand to be corrected if David or any of the councillors have further knowledge on that.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks, Councillor Campbell. You want to come back?
Can we find out?
Mr. Sutty.
It's certainly not a core path right of way, that's for sure, and that's the only issue where the access officer would be involved. Years and years ago, when I think we were looking at either at this site or the one at Site A, I forget which, there was a committee site visit, so I have been on the site, and I would concur with what Philip said. There's no obvious right of way or footpath. And obviously the site is up for sale at the moment, so I assume all the legal side of access across land has been looked into as part of that. But it's not a material planning consideration.
And that can be challenged elsewhere if it's found to be a path. Councillor Carruthers.
Just on that particular point, then.
We're still on questions for case officer.
Yep, so it's case officer. It is really, it's not for it because we've not got any applicant here, but it's just on that particular point. So I just wondering, so it's, I think it's only like 7 or 8 right-of-ways across the whole of Scotland, so it's no that. But there may well be a deed condition or servitutorial right away over that. But again, my point is that for the planning application. No, and that's what David's saying. I would have thought not. It'd be for the legal team, as David's kind of highlighted, that the lawyers or solicitors would sort that out when they got to a transfer of land sale.
Thanks very much, Councillor Keller. There's no response required for that, Laura?
In Scotland, unlike England, as you might know, rights of way do not need to be on a plan. And it's possible that you can have rights of way on a plan, but it's also possible that you have rights of way which people have been exercising open and peaceably for over 20 years and nobody's objected to it, but it's just never made it onto a plan. It's something which, as David says, will raise its head at the point where people start to build it, and it would be dealt with at that time. If there is a right of way, then it is possible for the person who has the piece of land to ask for that right of way to be redefined, and there is a statutory process to go through that. But it's not unusual in Scotland to have a situation where there could be a right of way, but you don't actually find out about it to the point in which people start developing a site.
Thanks for that, Laura. If we have completed questions for our case officer, haven't you, Mr. Councillor Slater?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Just as Laura said there, is people use walkways and land, and after a period of time, it's deemed basically as a walkway. But as Laura says, when it comes to planning, that's when hopefully it'll be found out. Thank you.
I presume that'll be dealt with by legal. If there are any paths or routes that are legitimately entitled to be in place, and as a legal officer has said, and I think we all know anyway, you can reroute a path. You don't necessarily have to block the path, you simply reroute it. So that would happen if it would be found a right of way. So, but that's not for us to deal with today. So we'll move on to a registered speaker, but before we do, Mr. Sutty wants just to make one observation to members. Mr. Sutty.
Thank you, members. Just before we move into the representations, I wanted to clarify something. We have today, Mr. Raymond Clingan is coming along to speak, but he also raised an issue on Monday, which was that his letter, which had been submitted along with 2 photos on the 4th of March, had not appeared on the council's website. And we looked into this. The photos were on the website, but unfortunately our business support team had missed the fact to switch his representation to public on the council's website. So it didn't appear. As soon as that was drawn to our attention, it was put online on Monday. So it has been in the public domain. Philip summarised the issues which were raised, because whilst it was on the website, it was in our back office system. So the issues were correctly summarised in the report, and you have Mr. Clingan here today to first-hand give you his own concerns about the proposal. So we've apologised for the fact that it didn't appear online when it should have done, but he is here today to at least give you his concerns.
So just for our own peace of mind, Laura, given that Mr. Clingan's here today and that report or his letter has been summarised, can we proceed to determine this once we've heard from Mr. Clingan, the others objector, and heard the statement from the applicant and agent?
Yes, I would suggest that Mr. Clingan's presence here today cures any defect in the process.
Thank you. Given that advice, members, we move on to the registered speakers. So the first registered speaker is Andrew Clark, who's an objector here in person. Andrew, I'm sure you know the procedure as well. You'll have 3 minutes to make a presentation. I'll remind you 30 seconds to go. And if you'd be happy to wait for questions in case members have any, I'd appreciate that. Just whenever you're ready, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Members, my name is Andrew Clark of Robert Potter and Partners on behalf of Mr. G. King. On 27 January 2016, this committee approved conditions specifically in relation to floor level and no land raising associated with this site. On 9 November 2017, it was agreed by this committee that any application for this site would be decided by the committee. Also in 2017, it was agreed by this committee that any development of this site would require careful consideration to assure appropriate level of amenity is achieved in relation to the adjoining properties either side of this site. The committee rightly provided weight to concerns on amenity for development of this site. This current application seeks to bypass the decisions previously made by this committee. It's not an instance that this can't be complied with in terms of the conditions that were associated with the extant planning permission. It's more a case that this design chooses to not comply with them. There is no question that a house can be developed on this infill site. That, however, does not provide an excuse to accept a poor solution. The purpose of planning should ensure that buildings are well designed and integrated into their surrounding environment and to improve the quality of life for residents. This proposal, however, is a poorly selected house type which does not take an appropriate consideration of the existing site constraints. It is overly large and poorly positioned in comparison to the previously approved design that was approved by this committee for the site, and therefore fails OP1 under general amenity and loss of privacy, sunlight and daylight to neighbouring properties, and as such it provides an unacceptable loss of residential amenity. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Any questions for our objector, Andrew Clark? In that case, thank you for being with us today, Andrew, and thanks for your presentation. We have Mr. Raymond Klinger next, please. And Raymond, I'm sure you'll have noticed the procedure. You'll be given 3 minutes to make your presentation. I'll remind you of 30 seconds to go to draw it to a conclusion. And if you'd be kind enough to wait in case members have questions for you, I'd be grateful. So whenever you're ready, Raymond, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Firstly, may I say that I have no issue with the house being built at Site B. There is permission extant, and as can be seen in the report, there is considerable history attached to Site B and indeed to the adjoining Site A. Both have been the subject of several discussions and determinations at Planning Committee previously. Members, I ask that you note that this application was submitted as a full application immediately after the withdrawal of an ARC application. This was following the recommendation of the case officer, the history and previous conditions set by this committee being removed at the drop of a hat. The report of handling produced in 2018 in relation to Site A provided some assurance for us that careful consideration would be given to any future planning applications for Site B following a breach of conditions. This would ensure that the breach would not be set as a precedent for Site B, but here we are again with an even bigger house being proposed with significantly more land raising and material being needed to achieve the site levels. This new proposal will dwarf and overshadow our home. The 6-foot boundary fence will provide no privacy, and the gable end of the proposed house, which is less than 1 metre from the boundary and 6 metres from our bedroom window, will tower above the property. This house will fill the width of the plot to its maximum. Can this house be built without impacting negatively on the adjoining properties? There will be privacy and overlooking issues. The underbuild will be extensive and deep. Land raising will require tons of material being brought in. There will be a loss of light, noise and road safety fears. Reading the report, it is the case officer's view that none of these factors are relevant. Is this reasonable and right? I raised the construction concerns with the case officer and was advised that how the house is built is not a matter for planning. Can that be right? The size, scale, design and location of the build, coupled with the topography of the site, gives no consideration to neighbours' residential amenity nor any physical impact on property. A house can be built on Site B with the existing conditions with no land raising, but clearly the applicant does not wish to do this. So with advice from the case officer to resubmit the plans as a full application, we are today asked to eradicate the previous decisions taken by this committee. It seems you can build what you want, where you want, irrespective of the negative impact on others. Can this be right? To parachute a 5-bed house into this location on this site is not suitable. It is a square peg in a round hole. The application has not been considered in the round. Members, hindsight is a great thing, but I would contend that foresight is even greater.
You have 30 seconds to go.
Throughout this process, I asked myself, is what's happening fair, reasonable and right? That's the benchmark. In this case, it's not fair, reasonable nor right. And on that basis, I ask that members refuse this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clingan, and thank you for being brief. Any questions for Mr. Clingan, our objector? In that case, sir, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
We now have a statement to be read out on behalf of Lloyd Gemmell and Gemma Carruthers, who are the applicant.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to address the meeting today. I was born and brought up in the village and lived there for over 20 years with my parents before moving into town. I and my partner now have a young family and would like to return to my home and bring up our children in the village and let them experience the childhood that I enjoyed so much. I am a time-served joiner working for a local construction company, and since an early age I have always wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps and build my own home someday. This site had become available across the road from my parents' house and ironically was once owned by my grandfather. It would mean a lot to me and my partner if we were able to build our house there. We would love to be part of the village lifestyle in Treggles and bring a new, younger generation to live there and experience all it has to offer. The case officer has presented to members today a comprehensive report which supports the application and addresses the concerns raised. There is little I can add that is not already set out in the report, and I would ask you to support my application and approve the planning officer's recommendation.
Thanks very much, Tracy. No questions on that. So members were in session. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, yeah. I remember going to this site visit in 2015 or something like that. It was quite a while ago, and I think John, you were there as well. Councillor Campbell was there as well. And it was a site that was, looked after. And any planning application that come forward, we did ask to come back to committee, and that's what's actually happened. And saying that, I don't see any reason why the application should be, deferred or anything like that. So therefore, we'll go with the recommendations in the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks. I just wondered if we could ask the committee to consider taking into consideration. I had no questions for the two objections there. A lot of sympathy for the applicant, I must say, but I mean, there's legitimate concerns being raised in regards to the size, the mass and the scale and the I suppose the topography of this, the land and the actual the height of the building. Would it be worth having a site visit? I'll just throw that out there, Chair, to see if there's any further support in regards to that, just so we better understand. We did it historically, we looked at it, made full consideration. I think I was at that site visit as well, I'm pretty sure I was, but I'll just put that out there as an option, Chair, that could be considered by the committee, and I'll see what members say.
Thanks, Councillor Carruthers. Councillor McFarlane, Andy.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. I think looking at the drawings and looking at the variation in height, etc., I think it would be worth a visit just so we can understand, especially in view of Mr. Klingen's representations. Thanks.
So you're proposing a site visit? And Councillor McFarlane seconded that. Councillor Dryborough.
I propose that we don't go on a site visit. There's enough information here to make the decision today.
Thank you, Councillor Slater, and then Councillor Drysdale.
I would agree to have a site visit.
Yeah, it's been seconded already if you're supporting Councillor Carruthers. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is quite a difficult case in terms of the design and heights, which we've read earlier should be in strict accordance with the plan, and the objector has said that it does fail OP1 with unacceptable loss of private amenity. So the only way I would like this to go, if we decided today as a committee that it goes through, I'm wondering if we condition it, if we feel that the land, I see I can't even read my own writing, if we feel that the land raises which have been proposed are not contrary to the conditions of the planning in principle. Yeah, because the planning in principle on page 46 says that the land raising is contrary, and I'm just concerned that the heights do not fit our council's
I don't know that the site visit would help with looking at the height because the building's no there. But anyway, I'll come back to you. I see Councillor Campbell want to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we've got a procedural motion put forward. I think we should deal with that first. So it's either going to be a site visit or we carry on. So I think Councillor Dryborough said that he's got sufficient information. I'll second. So we can go to a procedural. I was going to say that we can't move to that until Councillor Dryborough gets a seconder, but he's got one now. So we have a proposal from Councillor
Carruthers, seconded by Councillor Slater, was it? Or Tracy will tell us.
McFarlane.
Thanks, Chair. So a motion is proposed by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor McFarlane, and that's to defer consideration of this application to allow for a site visit to take place. And the amendment proposed by Councillor Drybrough, seconded by Councillor John Campbell, is to determine the application today without the need for a site visit.
Can I just remind members as well, the last site visit that folks voted for, only Councillor Carruthers and I turned up with the folk that voted to go on a site visit, and you're only supposed to be voting for a site visit if you need to be there to personally understand what the layout is. That's the purpose of it. It's no voting to send Councillor Carruthers and me on a mission. I would expect if you're voting for a site visit, you'll actually attend it. Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you very much. Wise words from yourself, Chair, and I would support that wholeheartedly. The points I would like to see on the site visit, if successful, is the height of the ridge, the floor levels, and would be to newly established ground levels if constructed as per the designs laid out. Thank you.
That's great. And Councillor McFarlane wants to speak, but we've already got your seconder. My apologies for attributing it to Councillor Slater. He did want to second it, but he was too late. Councillor McFarlane, do you want to come in?
No. Yeah, no problem, Chair. Just to say that previously when I've been on committee and there's been a site visit, I've always attended when required. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Tracy, take us through the procedure, please.
Chair. So the motion is to defer for a site visit, and the amendment is to determine today without the need for a site visit. Chair?
Amendment.
Vice Chair?
Motion.
Councillor Baretti?
Amendment.
Councillor Blake?
Motion.
Councillor John Campbell?
Amendment.
Councillor Carruthers?
Motion.
Councillor Davis?
Motion, please.
Councillor Drybrough?
Amendment.
Councillor Drysdale?
Motion, please.
Councillor Hill?
Motion, please.
Councillor Howie?
A motion.
Councillor Hislop?
Amendment.
Councillor Jordan?
Amendment, please.
Councillor McFarlane?
Motion.
Councillor Marshall?
Amendment.
Councillor Slater?
Motion.
Councillor Thompson?
Motion.
And Councillor Walters, are you back in the meeting? No, he's not here. So the motion is carried 10 votes to 7. The application has been deferred for a site visit to be arranged.
We'll see members at the site visit in due course. Governance will fix that for us. So move on. BSL interpreters, we have one agenda item to go. I've normally offer you a break at this moment in time. This is the last agenda item. There are no registered speakers. So I'll proceed, and that will allow us to complete the business when we're all here and present at the moment. So agenda item number 7.
Thank you, Chair. That's great.
Thanks very much, folks. That's very kind of you. A consultation regarding an application made under Section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 for extension to wind farm comprising erection of 3 wind turbines, maximum height to tip 125 metres, 3 wind turbines, maximum height to tip 149.9 metres, battery storage and associated infrastructure. Associated infrastructure includes use of existing and consented under construction access tracks, new access tracks including 3 watercourse crossings, construction of turbine foundations and crane hard standings, underground cabling, use of an existing borrow pit and reuse of 2 consented temporary storage compounds, which is a revised proposal at Sandynow Wind Farm, Kirkconnell. The application type is a Section 36 consultation. The recommendation is to raise no objection, and our case officer is Robert Duncan. And the reference number, just for clarity, is 22/1574/S36. going to the Scottish Government Energy Consents Unit, reference ECU 00003274. Robert, do you want to take us through your presentation, please?
Thanks, Chair. Certainly. I intend to present relevant details of the application to the committee today and key supporting information before then summarising the key points that are in your report in front of you and the recommendation and the basis upon which the balanced recommendation was made. So looking at the slides, this is a location plan. The application site is situated next to the recently established Sandy Now wind farm, which is now operational. As you can see from this diagram, it's a bit faint on the screen. It's located to the southwest of Kirkconnell, near the boundary with the East Ayrshire Council area, which is just to the west. The present development as has been implemented comprises 24 wind turbines, each at 125 metres from base to tip. Now, within your report, you'll see the planning history for the Sandy Now site. It's quite extensive. It's summarised within the report at paragraph 1.13, and that's on pages 57 to 59. So moving to the next slide, this is showing the overall development proposal. It comprises 6 3-bladed horizontal axis wind turbines, 3 of these measuring 149.9 metres from base to tip, and 3 measuring 125 metres from base to tip. Battery storage is also proposed, and borrow pit D, which is broadly in the centre of the site, and we'll come on to that, is also included. The proposal is summarised within your report at paragraphs 1.4 and 1.5. So looking at the elements of the proposal in greater detail, there's kind of 3 elements the way it's been packaged. This is the western element of the proposal. It comprises proposed turbines from south to north as you look at this, 25, 26, 27 and 28. So proposed turbines 25, 26 and 27, so that's north and then moving south to, would each measure 149.9 metres from base to tip. Proposed turbine 28, which is the northernmost of the 4 that you can see in front of you, would measure 125 metres from base to tip. You'll notice as well the existing wind farm development just to the east in this slide here. So what you're looking at is a new proposed leg of the development, if you like, much closer to the border with East Ayrshire Council. The proposed location of tracks and hard standing areas is also shown, as well as the location of borrow pit D, which is proposed to be restored after operational works have been completed. So this is the second detailed element. This is the northern element of the proposal. So you're looking at proposed turbines 29 and 30, which would each measure 125 metres from base to tip. And again, you can see the proposed location of tracks and hard standing areas. Existing development located there to the south, just as a reference point. The eastern element of the proposal shows the location of the proposed temporary construction compound. That's the area in blue above the kind of lilac rectangle, which is also the location of the indicative battery storage area too, and we'll come on to that. So this possibly doesn't show up too well, but in the middle of this screen there are 6 proposed wind turbine locations relating to this proposal. They're shown as amber dots. These can be compared with the adjacent green dots, which represent the granted and implemented Sandy Now permission, and also the nearby red dots, which represent the earlier Sandy Now application, which was refused. It's got quite a long planning history, as I've mentioned. You can see the location of various surrounding wind farm developments, unimplemented permissions, and undetermined proposals as well, and they've been labelled on this slide. And the cumulative situation within 15 kilometres of the nearest proposed wind turbine is provided within the report, and that's in paragraph 1.14 on pages 59 to 62. Again, there is a lot of wind farm activity in this area. Now, if members want me to come back at any point to any of these slides and discuss what's surrounding it and its status, I'm quite happy to do that, Chair. This is a wider scale cumulative diagram. It's been supplied by the applicant when the application was submitted, so it's now out of date. It's quite a fast moving picture, but it does give an indication of that bigger picture in southwest Scotland, and particularly Ayrshire, which is just to the north of the proposal. The application site is not located within a regional scenic area. Now, the cross-hatched darker area, as you can see on the slide here, shows the closest parts of the Thornhill Uplands regional scenic area, which is located there to the east of the proposal, and the Galloway Hills Regional Scenic Area, which is more kind of to the southwest. Turning now to the relevant landscape character types, it can be seen that the proposed development is situated within the southern uplands with Forest Ken Unit and Upper Dale Valley, Upper Nithsdale Unit landscape character types. The neighbouring landscape character type to the southeast is the Southern Upland Nithsdale Unit landscape character type. Now moving to the proposal, these are the proposed, this is a diagram showing the proposed turbine type for turbines 28, 29 and 30. Three-bladed horizontal axis type turbine. It's 125 metres from base to tip. The hub height would be 69 metres above ground level and the rotor diameter would be 112 metres. I don't have a power rating for this individual turbine, but I've been told the 6 turbines proposed would have a combined power rating of 21.6 megawatts. And this is looking at the other type. This is type for proposed turbines 25, 26 and 27. Again, three-bladed horizontal axis type. It's 149.9 metres from base to tip. So you can see the tower type is taller, but otherwise the proportions remain the same and the rotor diameter remains at 112 metres. It should be noted at this stage that turbines of less than 150 metres would not require to be fitted with visible aviation lighting, but would require to be fitted with infrared aviation lighting, which has become standard practice with the MOD. Next slide showing proposed indicative turbine foundation for each of the proposed turbines. You've got a diagram showing the proposed indicative battery storage area layout and this kind of storage unit container that's proposed for that area. This is showing an indicative detail of proposed typical access tracks forming part of the submission. And the next slide is showing the proposed abnormal load route, which would be the same as the original Sandy Now proposal. So what you're looking at is the final northbound leg being along the A76 trunk road through Sanquhar and then turning left at the bridge just beyond, the name of which just escapes me, but it's just beyond Kirkconnell. This diagram, it shows, sorry, bear with me, just lost my place. ZTV is zone of theoretical, sorry. Yeah. This diagram shows the presence of residential properties within 2 kilometres of any part of the proposal. It should be noted that these are all to the north of the proposed development, and impact on local communities and residential interests is considered within the report at paragraphs 4.71 to 4.73 on page 98. This diagram is showing the modelled shadow flicker impacts anticipated from the proposed additional development only. So that's from the 6 turbines that you have in front of you today. And then this is the predicted shadow flicker impact when in combination taken cumulatively with the effects arising from the existing Sandy Now wind farm that has permission and has been implemented. So now coming to the ZTV zone of theoretical visibility analysis, it represents a worst case scenario as it does not take into account vegetation cover, buildings or structures, and these often serve to lessen impacts in comparison with what is shown in a ZTV diagram. This is looking at the ZTV that's been modelled from blade tip for the proposal, so that's for the proposed 6 turbines. And it can be seen that visibility would be fairly localised and mainly concentrated on the Nith Valley. This is an equivalent ZTV diagram, but this is relating to proposed turbine hub height. And it also, it's maybe not clear here, it indicates locations from where views of the proposal would be theoretically possible in varying shades. So turning now to the specific landscape and visual impact assessment viewpoints, these can be seen here in connection with the zones where various turbines would be variously theoretically visible. So it's coloured in, different shades represent different magnitudes of visual impact. So the purple kind of lilac colour indicates where up to 6 turbines would be theoretically visible to tip height, blue up to 5, green up to 4, brown up to 3, orange up to 2 and yellow up to 1. None of the proposed turbines would be visible in the area shown in white in this diagram at all. So looking at the first viewpoint, this is from the A76 trunk road at Cairn Bridge looking south and kind of southeast at a distance of 1.48 kilometres, so it's very localised. And this is from the submitted EIA report. So you have a photo montage in the top half of this diagram which shows the existing situation with the wind farm. On the lower half of this slide you can see a wireline diagram, and the proposed turbines are shown in red from this location. So the first photo montage, it shows the location of proposed turbines 30 and 29, which I've annotated, so that's just on the left-hand side. And those are both turbines that are 125 metres from base to tip as proposed. The second photo montage from this viewpoint, panning more round to the south, shows the locations of, from left to right, proposed turbines 28, so it's also 125 metres, then 27, 26 and 25, which are all proposed to be 149.9 metres from base to tip as proposed. Now when you look back at the report and you look at the landscape architect's consultation response, particularly the part at 2.23 on pages 65 to 71, there's a table there that sets out her summary of issues from all of the relevant viewpoints that you'll look at today. It's key to note that the impacts from the proposal in itself has been assessed as significant from this viewpoint. Viewpoint 2 is, it's on the Libry Moor footpath, and this is looking kind of west-southwest from a distance of 1.64 kilometres from the nearest proposed wind turbine. So you're looking at a very localised viewpoint. This is the image again. Top image shows the existing wind farm situation. It doesn't include the proposed turbines. They are shown in red on the wireline below. And from left to right, they'd be turbines 30, 25, 26, 29, 27 and 28. And this is an image showing it as a photo montage of the proposed development cumulatively with the existing situation. Again, it can be seen from the Council Landscape Architects table on pages 65 to 71 of your report that these impacts have been assessed as significant from this viewpoint. So again, I've annotated what you're seeing there. You know, you've got 30, 25, 26, 29, 27 and 28 from left to right. So the numbers on the kind of lines indicating the turbines show what the additional impact is when you compare that to the original slide. Viewpoint 3 is from the now. It's 2.2 kilometres from the nearest proposed wind turbine, and that just shows you the broad location there. Again, photo montage, the top half shows the existing wind farm. It doesn't include the proposed turbines. They're shown in red beneath in the wireline diagram, and from left to right at this viewpoint, there are turbines 30, 29, 25, 26, 27 and 28. So this is kind of looking across the valley, if you like. And again, this is showing a photo montage of the proposed development cumulatively with my annotation on top of it, showing which turbines are additional to what you've already got at that location. Viewpoint 4 is from Lagree, again quite localised, 2.65 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine, and usual format, top half photo montage shows existing wind farm, doesn't include the proposed turbines. They appear in red on the wireline diagram below, and from left to right they're 30, 29, 25, 26, 27, 28, with an image showing the cumulative development that you would observe from this viewpoint if the proposal was implemented. Viewpoint 5, St Connell's Church, quite a key archaeological cultural heritage feature in the locality. This is 4.42 kilometres from the nearest part of the proposed development, and you have your top half, the photo montage, shows the existing wind farm in the centre of that image, doesn't include the proposed turbines, and they're shown in red in the wireline diagram below. So you can see again, this is looking across the valley from a different angle, but you're seeing it become a more distant feature in relation to existing wind turbines as well, even from this fairly close range. And this is an annotated photo montage. I've annotated it myself just to make it clearer where the new turbines are proposed. So from left to right here, you're looking at 30, 29, 25, 26, 27 and 28. It's quite a useful location, this, because as I was saying earlier in relation to layout, you're looking at turbines 25, 26, 27, 28, effectively being a kind of westbound extension towards the boundary with East Ayrshire. And I think this diagram shows that fairly well. When you look at the other two, when you look at 30 and 29, which are on the left-hand side of this image, they're more reading as kind of part of the existing development, albeit they are slightly further to the north than what you have at the moment. Viewpoint 6 is from Kirkconnell, about 2.65 kilometres away. From what I can see, this is quite near Kello Rovers football ground. I was trying to work it out. So this is looking towards the development. It's looking towards the kind of, it's more kind of west-southwest direction. You can see the existing wind farm in the top half of this. Doesn't include proposed wind turbines. You've got a wireline diagram below showing the existing situation with the proposed turbines in red. And this is your photo montage of it as it would look if implemented, and left to right, that's turbines 30, 25, 29, 26, 27 and 28. Viewpoint 7, Kirkland Hill. This is roughly 5.5 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine. Again, you're kind of looking across the valley. So you've got the top half here, shows the photo montage of the existing wind farm. Doesn't include the proposed turbines. You can see over distance you've got that light kind of grey area, which is the borrow pit, which has now been added to the proposal, and that's quite significant. I will come on to that when I summarise the conclusions, but there's obviously a need for mitigation and reinstatement in relation to that, amongst other things. So you can see in the diagram, the bottom half of this diagram, the wireline, you can see the proposed turbines in red, left to right, 30, 29, 25, 26, 27 and 28. The other thing, again, the Council's landscape architect in your report on page 73 within the table identifies this as a key viewpoint in relation to wind farm pattern. She obviously has concerns about the existing wind farm that's been built, but obviously we have to determine the proposal as it's been submitted today. But this is really showing the kind of pattern of how Sandy now, as it stands, differs, if you like, from the pattern of existing development in that location that's been implemented, for example, at Whiteside Hill, Sanker, even possibly 20 Shilling Hill, where they're much further back into the landscape from the Nith Valley. And that's your cumulative view, again with my annotation of the turbines so that you can make sense of those. Viewpoint 8 is Sanker, 7.48 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine. The viewpoint's obviously within the cemetery at Sanker. You can see the top half photo montage that shows the existing wind farm, doesn't include the proposed turbines. They're shown in the wireline diagram below in the bottom half of this slide. Left to right, turbines 25, 26, 27, 30, 28 and 29. And then your image showing the photo montage of the proposed development cumulatively from the same viewpoint. Viewpoint 9, this is from the Southern Upland Way. It's the northeastern approach to Sanker, 8.32 kilometres from the nearest proposed wind turbine. At this kind of range, you're starting to lose definition in the slides a wee bit, so I will apologise in advance, but I feel that I need to show them so that you can get an idea of how it would look in the wider landscape. So this photo montage, top half, it shows the existing wind farm, doesn't include the proposed turbines, and they're shown in red on the wireline diagram below, left to right, 25, 26, 27, 30, 28 and 29. And that's an image of the photo montage of the proposed development when you look at it cumulatively. Again, the Council's landscape architect at 2.24b, that paragraph on page 73 of the report identifies this as a key viewpoint in relation to understanding the existing wind farm pattern at this locality in relation to other developments. Next viewpoint, Croy-Cartland, similar distance at 7.23 kilometres away from the nearest proposed turbine, looking across the valley. Similar diagram here. You can see on the right-hand side of this photo montage, you can probably make out the two Sunnyside wind turbines, which I think were granted permission back in 2013 or thereabouts from memory at the second attempt. You can see, again, similar to the previous one, the proposed wind turbines are shown as red in the wireline in the bottom half of this slide. And this is your photo montage looking across from Croig. So that's kind of looking almost over Kirkconnell towards the development. Next one, viewpoint 11, is East Mount Lowther. You're starting to get quite distant now. This is 14.42 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine. You can see it's quite an elevated position. It's looking out more kind of towards the west from this location. It's maybe difficult to see the development within the middle of that slide, but that's where it is. I've not even tried to annotate these slides because they're so distant, and it's very difficult to pick out the individual turbines. Viewpoint 12, Blackcraig Hill, 5.1 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine, and this is actually in the opposite direction. As you can maybe see from this, it's more to the south of the proposal. So you've got a lot of turbine interest shown in this slide. It shows the existing wind farm in the top slide. It doesn't include the proposed turbines, and again they are shown in red on the Y-line diagram below, and that's your kind of photo montage of the proposed development cumulatively. You'll notice the wind turbines in the foreground, they don't form part of this proposal, it's much more distant. Viewpoint 16, Southern Upland Way, east of Cloud Hill. This is only 7.08 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine. And then you've got photo montage of existing situation in the top half, and then you've got the Y-line diagram below, and then the cumulative photo montage which would arise. Again, I can come back to any of these slides during the debate if that would help. Final three viewpoints, they're all Y-lines. These were requested after the submission originally came in, as I understand it. So Tothol's Hill is 5.72 kilometres from the nearest proposed wind turbine, and you can see the Y-line diagram which we've annotated it more clearly here. So the proposed turbines are in red, left to right. You're looking at 30, 29, 25, 26, 27 and 28. Next viewpoint 19, it's the core path at Auchentarget Moor, 10.7 kilometres from the nearest proposed turbine, and this is showing the Y-line diagram here. The final viewpoint I'm going to show to you today is the Southern Upland Way at Coupland Now, if that's how you pronounce it. It's 10.9 kilometres from the nearest proposed wind turbine, and you can see the Y-line shows the proposed wind turbines in red on this. So that takes me to the end of the slide presentation. General notes, building on the report, that this proposal has to be considered on its own merits. The planning history is outlined in the report, and this is not an opportunity to revisit previous decisions. It's clear that the Council's landscape architect has concerns about the cumulative outcome which would arise, and she has concerns about the pattern of wind farm development which would also arise in terms of visual and landscape character issues, and that's very much summarised in your report at paragraph 2.24b on pages 73 and 74. You'll see 4 key points there that she raises in terms of pattern. It's noted that the 2 viewpoints from which significant effects would arise as a result of the proposal, which I've shown you, are limited to those that are very localised. I mean, both of those viewpoints were within 2 kilometres of the nearest turbine. The Council's landscape architect has provided 2 recommendations which appear within the report at paragraph 2.2.2 on page 64, and the second recommendation is based upon a significant scheme of compensatory mitigation, and the recommendation in that regard forms a condition which would also encompass and bolster the requirement to adequately restore the borrow pit which is visible within the site and now forms part of this proposal. So I've tried to draw together the relevant points raised by the Council's landscape architect at paragraphs 4.66 to 4.70, and that's on pages 96 to 97 of the report in front of you. And I've also drawn a conclusion at paragraphs 4.80 to 4.82 of the report. And I feel that in this case, all things considered, the recommendation should be that the Council should not object to the Sandy Now extension proposal in its formal consultation response, subject to the recommended conditions attached. There is one footnote, and I should have probably mentioned this when I started my presentation. We did receive a late consultation response from the Council's Environmental Health Officer before today, but after the report was published. I haven't been able to look at that and make sense of it, but I will do it, and if that means that any of the recommended conditions change, then we would intend to do that. I don't think it will make any significant change to the recommendation in front of you, but it may make a change to the wording of particular conditions that appear in the appendix as part of the recommendation. But I'm hoping that could be something, if you're willing to go with the recommendation, Chair, I'm hoping that's something that could be done under delegated powers. And happy to answer any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robert. Councillor Slater, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Robert, for the report. But this is maybe a simple question as such, but it says here 149.9 metres to the tip. How do they do that? They build something as large as that, and it's exactly, to me, that's a way of not having to put in aircraft lighting. I don't believe they can get it exactly 149.9 metres. How did it? Question is, how did they do that? I mean, they can't possibly get it right every time. So, are they skimping on aircraft lighting? Thank you.
My understanding that the chairman of the committee has to hold the tape at the top when it's up.
Did you want... I've got Ian Howie on here.
Oh, sorry. No.
I thought David was wanting a response from... Was that just an observation? Mr. Councillor Slater?
Ian was just coming in on the same point.
Right, sorry. Right, so... Councillor Slater's asked a question. Councillor Colours wants to go in the same point, and then I'll bring in Councillor Howie. My apologies. I didn't realise it was the same point, Ian. Right, okay. So...
It's maybe lost its thrust now. What we're saying, my understanding is that the chair of the committee has to hold the tape at the top of the blade, while somebody else holds it at the bottom, and he can be 10 millimetre out.
Right, do we have a response for that or no? No need, Ian. Huh? Robert?
If I was monitoring that, Chair, I would use triangulation to measure the height of it, a clinometer, and then measure the distance, and then observe the angle, and then work it out using trigonometry. But I'm not a surveyor, so you'd probably want to get a surveyor to do a more accurate measurement.
Right, okay. I've got Councillor Howie with a question.
Thank you, Chair. Robert, it's about the battery capacity and storage. I do have concerns about constraint payments, and I was just wondering what capacity the battery storage has to negate the need for constraint payments being made, if that's possible for you to answer. It might be something, Chair, that we need to consider maybe at a seminar at some stage in future.
Robert?
I don't think I'm able to answer that question, Chair. I don't think I've got that information in front of me.
Okay, well, we don't have the applicant the opportunity to speak, so we'll just have to park that in, Councillor Howie. I'm afraid we don't have the information to hand today. Are there any other questions for our case officer? In that case, we're in session. Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, Sandy now has been back and forward in this planning application since 2016. I think I've been to every one of them since then. The landscape architect has always been the same with regards to the responses to the application, whatever it was at the time. The local community, of course, are really behind this. The good thing about this is the company themselves actually have a great way of community engagement, and I think that's really important when you look at the size of the wind farm that we're actually talking about. As we have been in discussions, and it's been to planning committee several times, I have no issue with this, and I would say that the planning committee should raise no objection to this taking it forward with the consideration that Robert's actually put in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Yep, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to start off by, saying that the landscape architect has been involved in most of these applications. However, it's difficult to gauge whether the response is actually just on these particular 6 wind turbines as opposed to the previous Sandy Now applications that have been put in there. I mean, it's small in the sense it's only 6 turbines, but overall there's, when you take all the other wind farms put together. However, in saying that, and Robert did you know, pick up on it on page 64. There's recommendation 2 there, you know, so if all the turbines were to go ahead or we don't raise any objections, you know, there's several mitigation factors in there, you know, where the landscape and habitats could be increased to try and mitigate, you know, some of these visual things. I think it's just the nature of wind farms. You know, you're always going to have a visual impact, Chair. You know, it doesn't matter where they are, and it depends on where your viewpoints are or what's more important to other people. You know, one viewpoint might be more important than others. However, in saying that, I'm happy to second Councillor Dryburgh that we raise no objections as long as some of these recommendations will be taken forward. Thanks, Chair.
Well, the conditions will certainly deal, they will be required to deal with. The recommendations will be something else. I mean, we will need, and I think Councillor Dryburgh is right. That, you know, the organisation have worked well with the local community and they've got community support. So, but anyway, Councillor Crothers, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Mine's probably more procedural in regards to, can we raise no objections and support? Because I think it has been in front of us. We're all very much supportive of it. I know I am. I'm supportive of it beyond raising no objection. I don't know if we were actually able to do that under Section 36, so we just raise no objection. Thank you. But very supportive of it. Thank you.
That's great, Councillor Crothers. Thank you very much. Can we do such a thing, David? Can we say that on this occasion the committee not only raise no objection, but we support the application?
I don't see why not. I mean, what happens normally is that Robert, whoever the case officer is, writes to the Energy Consents Unit confirming the decision of the committee, so there's no problem in adding in that not only are there no objections, but the committee actively supported the development, if that's what you wish.
Councillor Dryburgh has indicated he's no issue with that. Councillor Campbell?
Yep, happy with that.
Okay, and Councillor Beretti, please.
I'm happy with that as well.
That seems a very good decision today. Can you just confirm the decision of the committee, Tracy, including the fact that we'll write and say that as a committee we support this proposal?
Thanks, Chair. So members have agreed to raise no objection and also our support in the development, and that will be included in the minute.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you for attendance today. Thanks to all our officers for their work. I hope our young man learned something today. Probably learned not to come back to committee again. Thank you very much, members. I have no other business.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.